What's up guys, this is Chris here, and today we have a big video for you. Today I'm gonna try to tell you how much you should spend on a handgun. Now, how much you should spend on a handgun is very subjective, and it has a lot to do with who you are, what you're looking to get out of it, what you're gonna do with the handgun, and what features you want on the handgun as well. And then lastly, how much performance and how long you plan on having it. Now, I suppose the thing we should talk about is what makes guns cost more or less money. Well, first off, it a lot of times comes up to brand recognition. Guns that have higher brand recognition, maybe they were used in the military or law enforcement, maybe they've been proven for a very long time, have a tendency to cost more than guns that just came out or guns used in very small niches. The second thing, quality parts. Usually guns that cost more money have higher quality parts, not only on the surface that you can see, like features like comps and lights and rails, maybe better triggers, but things that you can't see as well. Things like internal parts, springs, barrels, magazines, things like that. They're made with higher or lower quality metals, depending on how much you spend on the gun generally. What the difference is the quality of manufacturing, the quality control of them checking to make sure that the guns work before they leave the factory, the machining quality, how good they machine the parts and to what standard they machine them to, and then finally the type of metal that they use is almost always better in higher quality guns. Another thing that can make a handgun cost more is historical value and track record and the materials used. For example, polymer guns are almost always going to be more affordable than an aluminum or steel frame gun because the materials themselves cost less, and the act of making the polymer grip as opposed to milling the aluminum or steel grip, it just simply costs the manufacturer more than it would the polymer gun. Another thing that costs money is a coating, and most people, I don't need a coating. They don't need a good coating until they carry it for a while and their sweat rusts the side of the slide off, which is a common thing for cheaper guns. Now, some of the perils of getting a really cheap gun, or maybe a gun cheaper than you want, is first off, long-term durability. The long-term durability on really cheap guns is usually pretty terrible. If you get a gun under the $300 price point, you probably won't be able to get through 100 rounds without a malfunction. And whether that's enough reliability for you, maybe so, but it certainly isn't for me, and I don't recommend guns that aren't very reliable, because if it doesn't go off, it's not worth a shit, in my personal opinion. So if you get a gun that's very cheap, you can have coatings that wear easy, you can have parts breakages before they should, you can have guns that don't work out of the box. I actually bought a Stoker and a Taurus that both didn't work right out of the box and had to be sent back immediately from a big box store. So what happens when you buy cheap is you get cheap results traditionally. Now, luckily in the gun world, you don't have to spend too much to get a high quality gun, but I certainly would avoid spending too little if you have the ability. Now, I do want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is our channel sponsor, Brownells. Brownells has been supporting the channel for a very long time, and we really appreciate them. They offer a wide selection of outdoor stuff, anywhere from my favorite ear pro to my range bag to optics to lights and many more. Brownells is also an Iowa company, and I love them personally. They have an amazing store. Use code OUTLAW10 if you want to get anything for a little cheaper. Now, first off, if you are getting into firearms for the first time, I think you should probably pay a little bit less than somebody that's getting into it for the 9th or the 10th time, and they already have a pretty good idea of what they want. Also, you need to be cognizant of what you want to use it for. I always say to people when they're going to buy a handgun, you have to figure out what you're going to use it for. Do you want it for concealed carry mostly, and then a handgun for self-defense at home a little bit? Or do you want it for home defense mostly, and you want to carry it around a little bit? Are you going to use it for home defense completely and then shoot a competition with it but never carry it? Or maybe you are planning on using it for carry and competition and you already have a home defense rifle. So a lot of different reasons to buy a handgun, including competition, concealed carry, home defense, going out on the range and plinking. You could do bullseye competitions, maybe you shoot long range with it, maybe you want to go hunting with it and you're looking for a 44 Magnum revolver. So the first step is figure out what you want to do and what niche that's going to fit in, because no handgun is going to be good at everything, but there are going to be some that overlap on certain categories a little bit, and again, we'll go over those today. So let's say that you are getting into concealed carry for the first time, and we'll start with that first, since I do believe that that is going to be the most popular genre of why people buy a handgun. Now, as far as concealed carry, there are very cheap concealed carry guns that you should completely avoid, usually under the $300 mark, but we're going to start at the $300 mark and talk about some that you might be able to get. get. First off is going to be the CZ P10S. That is a very good gun. The P10S is the subcompact version of the P10 series, and it is a solid gun that you can get for around $300. And the reason why I would recommend that if you're going that low is because it's really the only affordable, reliable, feature-packed gun that you can get between $300 and $400. Now, is that what you should spend $300? I would recommend no, honestly, because it's going to be very rare to find that gun for that price. Most likely, you're going to honestly be looking for guns in the $400 to $500 to even $600 price range for your first concealed carry gun. And the reason why I say you should spend that is because it gives you a variety of options that you can pick what's right for you, what you think looks cool, maybe what you saw in a video game, but also something that fits your hand well, that is going to be almost guaranteed reliable from a large manufacturer with a good warranty. Also, if you get a gun in the $400 to $600 category, you're going to be looking at guns like the P365, for example. You're going to be looking at guns like the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus here. You're going to be looking at guns like the Glock 26 or maybe the Glock 43X, and all those guns are extremely proven, reliable, durable firearms that are a good size for most people. And what I mean by that is if you're a very small statured person, you're looking for a very small concealed carry gun, the P365 is a really good gun for small hands. It shoots well and it has great features. Whereas if you're a little bit bigger person but you still want a small gun, you can go with the Smith & Wesson Shield or the Glock 43X. They're very, very venerable companies from three of the biggest firearms companies in the world. And if anything breaks, you're going to be able to find parts. If you want magazines, you're going to be able to do that. And they all shoot the 9mm round, which is the most common round in the United States. So ammunition is going to be affordable as well. So if you're looking for a concealed carry gun and you're getting an entry-level gun, or for me personally, I carry a Shield right now and I have a couple hundred guns, I think the $400 to $600 price point is probably right for almost everybody. I think if you get outside or over the $600 mark, you're probably getting into the realm of higher performance guns, and you're probably looking to go faster and more accurate than the average person, and honestly, faster and more accurate than you probably need to in a real life scenario. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be extremely fast and accurate. I'm just simply saying that a Smith & Wesson Shield or a Glock 43X is more than enough in almost every situation that you could find. And if you're looking for a solid carry gun and you want a carry gun that's more middle of the road, like it's going to be able to carry all day but use a home defense gun, the standard M&P Compact is a great way to go. It comes with slide serrations, optic mount, raised sights, good texture, and it has a solid striker fired action, and they come with or without a safety, all for the price of around $500. Now, if you're looking at a 380 concealed carry pistol, you think you pay less. A lot of times you actually end up paying more, although I would also recommend another Smith & Wesson for the 380, and that is going to be the Bodyguard 2.0. This guy is in the $500 price point, and it comes with all the features you're going to need, including an extremely small size that you can carry anywhere and a full 10-round magazine of 380 ACP. The other gun I would recommend in that category is going to be the Ruger LCP Max, which is a double stack 380, very similar in size and weight to the Smith. If you're not on the Smith, there's a Ruger option available, and all under $600. Now, if you go over $600 for a concealed carry gun, you're probably looking at something maybe double single action, or maybe single action only, or maybe a premium version of one of these standard striker fired guns. And what I mean by that is there are Smith & Wesson Performance Center guns that are very good. They're going to give you a better trigger, better sights, and maybe comped guns. Like, for example, the Smith & Wesson Shield comes in for around $500, where the Smith & Wesson Shield Performance Center comes in around $650 to $700. And what you get out of that is dual ports, which is going to have less recoil, it's going to have a better trigger, and oftentimes for the higher price point you can get guns with optics and lights included. Now, if $600 to $1,000 as far as concealed carry guns is still pretty good to go, and you might be able to get into, again, some higher performance options like the PDP Pro, for example, which is a compact 9mm pistol with a great trigger, but it also comes with raised sights, it comes with a threaded barrel, and it comes with other features that you're probably not going to need starting off. But if you already own a PDP, you might want to upgrade to something like that. Again, in that $1,000 price point, you're probably looking at something like the SIG P365 Spectre Comp, which is just a faster, slightly bigger version of the P365 that has an included compensator, it has a red dot mount, and instead of that flush fit 10-round mag, you get a 12 or 15-round mag. Now, over the $1,000 price point, I think is pretty rare for people to go for concealed carry, but you can do it. Some of my concealed carry guns are over $1,000. Some of them are aftermarket accessoried up, like my CZ P07 with Cajun Gunworks stuff in it, or maybe something like the Staccato CS, which was a very controversial gun in my last top 5, and it's controversial until you shoot the thing, because it is $2,000 for a concealed carry gun, and that isn't right for most people, but it is right for some people. Now, getting away from concealed carry into home defense handguns, I think you're gonna find a similar niche again for most people, but I would probably raise that bar up from $500 to $800 personally. There are some good ones under that price point, like this Ruger SR9, for example, but honestly, a lot of times when you get in these $300 guns, these $300 or $400 guns, which this one is, you can have good guns and you can have bad guns, and I usually try to steer away from that stuff. I usually try to steer people to guns that are almost always good. And I hate to mention this again, but for example, the CZP-10F series is going to be a pretty solid one and probably the most affordable option for a home defense handgun. Some of the best guns in the $500 to $700 category for home defense as far as handgun goes for me personally, obviously going to be the Glock 17 or 34. You're looking at the M&P full-size series. The PDP is a phenomenal one, and the Canik TP9 is a great one as well. All extremely good for the money, all right there in that price point, all very shootable, accurate, reliable designs that can be shot out to 100 yards. They can shoot sub 2-second build drills with the right people. They're going to be accurate, reliable, and you can find parts and accessories everywhere. Over that $700 price point, you are going to get some cool guns, but I think you are going to get diminishing returns based on the amount of money you are willing to spend. And I'll give you an example of that. The SIG 226 is an absolutely phenomenal gun, and it is occasionally one of my home defense guns, the SIG 226 X5 Legion. Well, that gun is well over the $1,000 price point, and although I can shoot it slightly faster than a polymer frame gun, it's not going to be fast enough for most people to notice a difference unless you have a timer, and you've now paid 1.5 to 2.5 times the price that you probably should have paid for a home defense gun, especially if you're just trying to get into it for the lowest amount of money that you can. Going up higher than that, you can get into something like maybe a Springfield Prodigy, or maybe something like a Staccato that's going to cost you that $1,500 to $2,500 price point, and again, it's going to be an excellent gun, very fast, very accurate, but it's more going to be a personal preference thing, and I wouldn't recommend that you spend that unless you really think you want it personally. So I think the $500 to $700 price point is going to fit most people, especially people that are getting into it for the first time and want a solid carry gun. Been shooting for a long time and you already have a $500 to $700 gun, obviously I'm not telling you what to do. If you want more, by all means get more. I mean, I have tons of guns over the $1,000 price point just because I love to shoot them and they give me a slight edge in performance over my cheaper guns. So be aware that you can buy more performance, but getting higher and higher on the spectrum, you're going to get diminishing returns. For example, the Glock 19 is an absolutely phenomenal gun, and you can get it for around $600, and it would serve you well for concealed carry and for home defense. You get this completely kitted out for under $1,000 for home defense with a solid light, a bunch of magazines, and some ammunition to use. That being said, is my Atlas Aries better? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. It has dual ports, it has a lighter spring in it, it has half the trigger weight as the Glock, so it's going to be more inherently accurate. Is it worth the money to most people? Absolutely not. And again, you can get less and less return based on how high you go. Is it worth it to me? Yes, it is, because I love to shoot it and I shoot all the time. I shoot 50,000 rounds a year, but most people don't. I suppose we can quickly go over 2011s. Now, 2011s are I would argue, a life's pursuit of mine. I love the 1911, I love the 2011, but it's a good thing to talk about quick with home defense because they're a great home defense gun, but they are one of those genres of guns that are just going to be much more expensive than most other guns. If you're comparing standard guns like the Glock to the Smith & Wesson to the Canik, you can do that for home defense, but if you get into 2011s, the cheapest one I'd probably recommend is either the Apollo or the Springfield Prodigy, and those are both going to be over $1,000. The one I would absolutely recommend is the Staccato P, CS, C, or XL. All those guns are going to be $2,500 plus because that's just how much 2011s cost. So it depends on the person and it depends what you want. Also, if you get into home defense guns like anything else, features are going to cost more. You might be able to get a PDP, a standard PDP full size for $500, but if you want the PDP Pro Pro with the threaded barrel, you're gonna have to pay a couple $100 more. If you want the compensated PDP, which literally just came out, the PDP X, you're gonna have to pay around $1,000. However, this is gonna give you less recoil, a optics mount right out of the box, and you're gonna get the PDP dynamic trigger. So if you pay a couple $100 more, you get a little bit lighter trigger, you get a little bit less recoil, and that's kind of the standard across the board. Now let's get into revolvers. First off, revolvers once were cheap, but they're not as cheap anymore, I've noticed. You can get into some pretty affordable revolvers, $400 or so for Rock Islands and stuff like that, but I would definitely not recommend it. And if you popped on this video and you wanted to know how much you should spend on a revolver, I would probably look at brands instead of prices, to be honest with you, and I would probably look at Ruger or Smith & Wesson. Generally, they make the two best revolvers in the market for me for the money. And as far as Ruger goes, they have two of the most impressive revolvers I've ever owned. One is the LCR right here, the LCR X, and it is a 5-shot 357, and this can be had for $600 to $800 depending on where you buy it. And the Ruger GP100 is around the same price. This one is a 7-shot 357 Magnum, and it is a phenomenal gun for home defense as well. The Smiths, I would recommend the 686 or maybe the 629. I would also check into the Airweights. Those can be had for around $500 or $600, and they're definitely worth it for concealed carry, but they are very hard to shoot. They're very lightweight, small revolvers with a very small grip, and you have to be prepared for that. Revolvers have been done a long time, but they do take a little bit of work and a little bit of money to make good ones, which is why a lot of companies break into revolvers and then immediately don't make any more revolvers. And Smith and Ruger have been making them for so long, they can make solid ones for an affordable price. If I was looking for a good revolver, I wouldn't look any less than $600. I'd probably go $600 to $1,000 and you can get a solid one. Now lastly, competition guns for people who are still here. I think competition is probably the least likely thing that you would be buying a handgun for. Most people usually compete for the first time with their home defense gun or with their carry gun. But if you don't have a handgun at all, or if you do and you're trying to get a better competition gun, I would definitely check out probably just the full-size versions of the same striker fired guns that I mentioned before. I mean, in competition, if you're going carry optics or if you're going production, Canik dominates, Walther dominates, the PDP is very prevalent, the M&P, the Glock. And above that, you're going to be looking at the CZ Shadow 2, which I think is probably the best double single action gun for competition. I think it's a great gun for home defense as well. That gun can be had for around $1,000 and can outshoot most people who can't shoot very well with 2011s. The Shadow 2 is an absolutely amazing gun, shit packed full of features. So I would imagine competition guns, you can get a solid one for $700 to $1,000. Then you're gonna have to end up putting an optic on that normally, which is gonna add it up to about $1,500. So I would say probably $700 the minimum I would spend on a competition gun, because competition guns are gonna take a beating. I mean, if you're really trying to be good at competition, you're gonna be shooting a couple hundred rounds a week at least, and you're gonna break cheaper guns.
What do most serious competition people use?
Well, I mean, they use Glock, or they use M&P, or they use CZ, or they use 2011s. I mean, it depends. If you're in limited optics, you're in limited, you're in open division, almost exclusively 2011s. And that's why I kind of mentioned 2011s earlier. You can get an absolutely murderous 2011, but it's going to be $4,000 like the Staccato XC. So for most people, I would say steer away from the 2011s unless you really want peak performance, or unless you grew up on a 1911 like me. Now, no matter how much you spend on your firearm, it's important to always remember that you should practice with it and that ammunition also costs money. So when you're budgeting your firearm, try to budget in a couple hundred rounds at the very least of ammunition to get used to the gun, because it's more important to be good with the gun than what type of gun you have. It's good to have those gun handling skills, and it's good to be comfortable and confident with your firearm, and it takes a couple extra magazines and a few hundred rounds at the very least to do that. So always add that into your firearm budget when you're planning on purchasing one. As far as features that might go on the gun that you might also need to add, if you're looking for a home defense handgun, for example, you might need to add a pistol light, and that'll at the very minimum cost you another $100, because I think the best entry-level pistol light, in my opinion, usually comes from Streamlight. Streamlight's usually $100 to $200. If you want to get a really good one, the Surefire X300 has always been my go-to, and that's $300 extra, but it will definitely illuminate your life, and it will make things a lot easier because you can have both hands on the gun, and in a situation, it's easier to use a handgun with both hands on the gun. So I would recommend a weapon light for a home defense gun, and then obviously consider maybe you want a red dot, maybe you don't, and that will also add another $500 to $600 if you buy a solid red dot, and $300 to $400 if you buy an affordable red dot like maybe a Vortex or a Holosun. They're good options. It's just up to you which dot you like better, which one looks better in your eye, and how much durability you're looking for. The Vortex or the SIG are pretty reliable. The Trijicon is very reliable, but also very expensive, just like the Aimpoint. So in conclusion, at the end of the day, how much should you spend on a handgun is how much you think you should spend on a handgun. I think you should consider what you're trying to do with it, how much performance you want to get, and what your budget is. I think you can find a good gun in most people's budget, and I think for the average person it's $500 to $700, but if you make a gang of cash and you want something super solid, you can go well over the $1,000 price point, up into the $7,500 price point if you really want to. Let me know what you think below. Do you want me to expand upon this? Because I certainly can. I'm trying to keep this short, so if you want to see an expanded version of this, let me know in the comment section below. If you completely disagree with me and you think I'm wrong, leave that in the comment section below as well. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Please support your Oklahoma shelters, and remember to recycle. I'll check you later. And have been holy fuck, you have a giant spider on your camera. It just crawled up in your mic. Just watch your hands. There's a yellow one. I'll get it. Hold on. That's why. Look at that giant spider. That's what I was talking about.
I'm being attacked by spiders. They're getting fucking crazy.
That one's a big creepy
like the
motherfucker.
Fourth or fifth one.
Yeah.
Did I get it?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
That was a big creepy one.
It was. Okay, I think I'm okay now.